organization with based in Canada, but then runs projects across the world. Our primary work is to train journalists to report professionally and ethically on human rights issues, particularly issues affecting women and girls. In Kenya, we run a project called Voice for Women and Girls' Rights, which is the VWGR. And technically, we are also called in Kenya by that name. In Kenya, we are called Voice for Women and Girls' Rights. But essentially, Voice for Women and Girls' Rights is a project of Journalists for Human Rights, which is the mother global organization. We've decided to bring all of you here this morning to discuss an important topic which affects women of our societies, which is female genital mutilation. And in Kenya, Kenya thankfully is taking a lead actually in the continent in trying to eradicate this vice in the society, in our communities. So this is why we brought you all here this morning, and I think it is time for us to actually start this event. We've got to 20 people already, and I'm sure more people will join us as we go. But for now, I would like to start the program properly. I will invite my colleague, Sami Muraya. Sami is the project manager for Journalists for our VWGR project in Kenya, and Sami will kindly do opening remarks for this event this morning. And then we'll move from Sami. I will come back to invite my colleague Judy, who will then come to host the first session this morning. Sami, karibu.
Thank you very much, Mustafa, and of course for introducing the organization. Much appreciated. And just like you, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the meeting this morning, and to basically just say that FGM is a very critical topic, very important topic that we take to heart as an organization. And like our name suggests, Voice for Women and Girls' Rights, female genital mutilation happens to be one of those core things that we look at, and we basically say that if we do not do anything about it, then we really wouldn't say that we are performing our duty in the country, and especially putting the duty bearers to task, and also just accountability in general, because we have very beautiful policies in place against FGM. We have a presidential decree that was made sometime last year to end FGM by 2022. And the main reason why we're even having this meeting is to generally ask ourselves where we are, and to look at ways in which together as civil society and us as an organization that is working with the media and also the journalists that are here, how we can generally be able to work together to ensure that we do eradicate this practice. And it's really sad to note that we are now starting to see some new hotspot areas coming up despite the presidential decree, because I can talk about a place like Moranga. Yes, I know I've seen some journalists here from Moranga, and they will say that the practice has always been there. But then the practice has started picking up over the last few months because of a certain cult there that is forcing women to undergo the cult, the vice, or to undergo the practice of FGM. So we are seeing that rise. And one of the funniest things, or one of the things that we need to note, is the authorities in that area right now are generally turning a blind eye, saying that it's not happening, and being in denial. So how can we, as people who are working in women's rights or in human rights organization, what can we do to ensure that this stops? And I'm hoping that is going to form part of the conversations that we have this morning. And generally, we will look at not just Moranga, but all the other areas where FGM is rife. And the fact that even people, literally, we have doctors that are agreeing to carry on the practice and what they're calling safe FGM, but we all know that it is illegal. But we have people who are in the medical practice that are doing it openly, and it is known. And this can be attributed to counties like Kisii, Kuria, and generally others as Samburu as well. And we've also seen it happening in some northeastern province, the old northeastern province. So generally, there is a lot that we need to do to ensure that the vice stops. And it's only through conversations like the ones that we are going to have this morning that we can be able to stop it. So I'm hoping that we all have a very candid conversations and conversations that are going to build towards ensuring that the vice does stop at the end of the day. Once again, I take this opportunity to welcome you to the meeting, and karibuni sana, and look forward to a very healthy conversation. Back to you, Mustafa.
Thank you very much, Sami, for those opening remarks. And I think that will kickstart us into the conversation this morning. But just before we launch into the conversation, I just have a few guides to make, especially regarding the videos. I will, especially for speakers, we will appreciate that if you switch on the camera before you speak. It's okay to switch it off again after you've spoken, but please switch on, if you can, please switch your cameras on. The reason for that is and also to let you know that we are recording this conversation. We recorded this conversation and we wish to upload it on our YouTube page after this, and you please let us also know if that is something that you have concerns or issues with. We're doing this because we believe it's such an important conversation to keep within a small space, but we can get many people to benefit from the outcomes of these conversations. So with those remarks made, I would also like to just emphasize that this conversation is really to just, we brought in different people here in the media, in the civil society space, but also just from the community, people who do frontliners, who campaign in communities to ensure that they match, with the presidential declaration to end FGM in Kenya by 2022. So generally, in this discussion this morning, we ask, is Kenya on track to end FGM by 2022? If not, why not? And what are the barriers blocking Kenya to meeting this deadline? And once we are able to identify these barriers, what then our stakeholders within these industries can do to ensure that we are able to overcome these challenges. So with these remarks made, I would like to now also invite my colleague, Judy Kabiria, who will host a short discussion just to check with different stakeholders working in the sector about where they are at and what they are doing to eradicate FGM in Kenya. Karibu, Judy. I see your camera is already on.
Yes, thank you very much, Mustafa, and welcome everybody on board. It's in good, a beautiful morning, but one thing we are asking the Nairobi weather is to make a decision of what it should be like, because it's hot or it's cold. But either way, we are very happy to be here. We are very happy that we're discussing these important issues that are affecting our society, especially the girl child and the women in Kenya. To start us off with our first panel this morning, I beg to introduce our panelists. I have 3 panelists, and one of them is Benedict Loloju. She's the CEO and FGM board. I don't know whether you're able to switch on your camera for people to see you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Here I am.
Good morning. There you are, named Mustafa Dumbuya. I'm sorry. Yes, most welcome, Madam Loloji. It's very nice to see you again. I know you are doing such an amazing job, and we look forward to hearing more from you. Our second panelist is Ismail Omar. Ismail Omar is the head of policy and advocacy at Amref Health Africa. Karibu sana, Omar. Sorry, your microphone is off.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Ismail. And our third panelist is Caroline Mudgo. Caroline is the GBV Gender Advisor at UNFPA Kenya. Karibu sana, Caroline.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Judy.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have each around 10 to 15 minutes. And basically what I would like us to discuss is look at the progress so far that has been made by your organization. And I look back at a report that was released in 2009, it showed that Kenya had made very good progress, that we had managed to reduce the prevalence rate of FGM from 27% to 20%. And I know a lot of things have happened along the way. There has been COVID. So there have been a lot of challenges that came along the way. So I would like to know what has been the progress like, and if you can allow me, I would like to start with Loloju. Loloju, I don't know that you'll be able to change your name, but it's okay, later you can do that. So if we can start with you, Loloju, especially in terms of the legal part of it, and looking at the progress that we made so far. Yes, there were those laws that were in place, but what has been the progress in terms of looking at the legal ways of addressing female genital mutilation? And has there been any progress in terms of fighting FGM? And again, looking at 2022, sometimes when the president made this declaration, actually a group of activists said that it was an unrealistic set deadline, because they said it was not possible for Kenya to achieve it. So I would like to know in terms of the legal part of it from the anti-FGM board, what has been the progress like, and do you think the progress, with the kind of progress we've made, that we are likely to ensure that we achieve that deadline by 2022? Karibu sana, Loloju. So 10 to 15 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Judy. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I want to give a background on female genital mutilation. As we are already aware, female genital mutilation is the worst form of gender-based violence meted on women and girls. And for Kenya, as you have said, we've made major strides. According to the Kenya Demographic Health Survey 2014, Kenya prevalence was at 21%. That is more than 4 million women and girls are living with the consequences of FGM. That is between the age of 15 to 49. When we look at the under 15, according to the research, we have prevalence of around 3%. What has happened is that in the last 3 decades, we have had a very, very big improvement in terms of the number of cases of women and girls who are facing the CAD. From 10 over 10 among women and girls, that's 100%, to about 2 out of 10 in Kenya. That's what we are being shown by 21%. That is 20 out of 100, about 2 women in 100 women. So we are making a lot of progress. Then when we look at the country, we are looking at a number of communities that are practicing female genital mutilation. And when we come down to our own a way of looking at things and giving it a bird's overview, we have 22 counties that we consider to be high prevalence. Because when we look at the statistics, we have the Somali community at 94%. That is the whole of the northeastern region. That is Mandera, Garissa, Wajir, Tana River counties. That's where we have more of the Somali living. So that's at 94%. So those 4 counties are among the counties we consider hotspot. Then we have other communities like the Kisii, the Samburu, the Pokot, the Kuria coming after the Somali community. So when we look at that, then we are able to really focus on the very high prevalence counties. But we don't mean that other communities like the Kikuyu do not practice and don't have a statistics. According to the Kenya Demographic Health Survey, the Kikuyu are at 14.6%, the Meru and Embu are at 32%. So you can see that we still have FGM at Central Province, according to the statistics that we have. But that is 7 years ago. We've not had any research done, major research done through the KDHS since 2014. So we are expecting to get our next statistics in 2022 because the Kenya Demographic Health Survey, we are being informed and we are already in the committees that are preparing, will give us the next statistics in 2022. But what are we saying? We have made progress already. 2019 comes, 2014 first comes, and through the Prohibition of Female Genital Mutilation Act, the Anti-FGM Board is formed in 2014. That is exactly 7 years after, just the same way we had the KDHS in 2014, then we had the Anti-FGM Board put in place. What has the Anti-FGM Board come to do? The Anti-FGM Board, the role is to do policy, strategy, do coordination, advise government on the FGM situation in the country, and also make sure that there's creation of awareness on the negative effects of FGM, just to make sure that our society and our communities understand why we are saying they should stop FGM. So when the Anti-FGM Board came into place, then a number of policies, strategies, and ways of doing things have been put in place since then. We have the policy that was launched by the president in 2019 in State House, Nairobi, that is November 8th. Then we have the strategic plan, the reviewed strategic plan 2019 to 2023 in place. Then we said we cannot only use the stick, we also have to use the carrot, because this is a cultural practice that is embedded in the community. It is a cultural practice that you don't just wake up one morning and say, because the law is in place, then people have to stop. No. So what did we do? We came up with our partners with what we call the community dialogue strategy. Like we came up with, how do we communicate with our communities? How do we make them understand why we are saying that FGM should stop? So we have a community dialogue guideline in place, and that is what we have been using with our partners to dialogue with our communities. And out of that, we already have a number of declarations from our elders. We have what we call the Alale Declaration by the Pokot community at the border of Kenya and Uganda, because as you're already aware, we have our cross-border, we have a cross-border challenge with our neighbors. So what did we do? We had a community dialogue with our elders in West Pokot and our elders in Uganda, and we had what we call the Alale Declaration this year, where our elders from the Pokot community decided that they are going to help us really bring down the statistics of FGM by talking to their people and telling them time is up for us to continue with FGM. And through the Alale Declaration, we've seen a lot of progress in terms of FGM eradication in West Pokot County. Then we have the declaration by the Borana elders from Ethiopia and Kenya. That is the Gumigayo elders of the Borana community. And this one came during the International Day of the Girl in October last year, where now we have the Borana people have said that FGM #1 has to stop in their communities. And then now we had the major declaration that was attended by His Excellency the President. That is the Kisima Declaration by the Samburu elders. The Samburu elders that cover Samburu County, Marsabit County, Isiolo County, and Laikipia County. So we had the Samburu Declaration, which we call the Kisima Declaration. And this is eradication of FGM and child marriage among the Samburu. And they brought in another aspect of having an alternative rite of passage where the girls will go through the traditional way of doing things in their community, but without the caste. So that's what came out of that declaration. And the elders made a decision that girls will not be married off. We know that it is work in progress, but at least we have the elders who are the community champions and the gatekeepers of culture making that decision that they are going to stop FGM. So when we look at what we have been able to do so far through the community dialogue guidelines, our partners on the ground, our CBOs on the ground are engaging the communities. They are making them understand why we are saying no to FGM. We have our own young people youth anti-FGM network in all the 22 counties with high prevalence of FGM. They are already engaging the young people, And we are already bringing the university students into this conversation, not only the university students, but all the students in institutions of higher learning, because this is the generation that will end FGM once and for all. The young people, the men, they are the ones who say they will not marry girls who are not cut. Why are we bringing men on board? Because men are the ones who make major decisions. The young men also are the ones who are the fathers of tomorrow. They are the ones who will marry the girls of today. So that's why we have also brought in the issue of the young people into the conversation. Then we have what we call action plans at county level. We already have policies at county level. The first policy that was done was for Kajiado County. We are already working with UNFPA. In the next 2 to 3 months, we should have other policies in the other counties. Already we have what we have already worked on, and we are hoping by the end of this year, most of the counties that have high prevalence will have their policies in place and their action plans in place. And we are seeing a lot of progress, especially in counties that we already have the policy in place, like Kajiado County. They've taken it upon themselves to run with their policy and to implement their own policy. Then we have a journalist toolkit that we launched with Equality Now. We have not left the journalists behind, because what we have realized is that most of the journalists don't understand what exactly FGM is. They don't understand what is the situation on the ground. And so even a meeting like this one is very important. I wish we would have had more journalists take into this conversation. We can still also share with you the journalist toolkit that we did with Equality Now. This is a toolkit that we want to make sure that most journalists get hold of and are able to read through it and understand exactly what FGM is and why we are saying it should stop. What else have we done? We have brought survivors' voices on board. Survivors are women that we mostly call victims, but what we are saying, we should not put them in a cocoon and say they are victims. They are survivors. They've survived the pain of FGM. They've survived the negative effects of FGM. And we have said these are the women who should bring their voices into the conversation and say, yes, we are suffering. We are going through the pain. We are the ones who have suffered FGM. And this conversation is starting, and we are seeing more women bringing their voices into this conversation. And I'm very happy because we are having more women now speak up. It's not easy to stand in front of people and say that I'm an FGM survivor or I've gone through FGM. You know, when I was growing up, it was very fashionable to go through FGM, and you'd want to line up in front of everyone and say, I'm a woman enough because I've gone through FGM. But in this era, nobody wants to stand in front of people and say, I've been circumcised, because it makes you feel like you're not part of others. You are being sidelined. And so we are seeing that it is better for women to speak up because they are keeping quiet and they are going through a lot. And we are happy because we are seeing more women going for reconstructive surgery. We are seeing more women realizing that something happened to them which is not right. And the women who are survivors are the same women who cut their own daughters. Today, Caroline Murgor will not just stand up and want to cut her daughter because she has not gone through FGM. So she will not decide that. But myself, Bernadette, because I'm a survivor of FGM, my head might decide I want to cut my daughter because I was also cut, and my mom was cut, and my grandmother was cut. So it is the voices of the survivors that should come, and these women should stand up for their own daughters. The moment these women who have been cut stand up for their own daughters, why should we not go to zero? We should go to zero immediately. And when we have men come into the conversation, men are the owners, and they are the people who have a voice in our communities. We are still very patriarchal. We cannot say that men are not in this conversation. It is the men who give the goats to be slaughtered. It is the men who say that that girl has to be sent off to her husband. And so the men conversation has to be. And I'm happy to see Tony Mwebia in this conversation because of the Men and FGM program that is running. And I think a lot will be said about that and how the men are reacting to this conversation. And so when we look at the president,
before I let you go, there's one question that I would like us to know. Do you think that we are going to achieve this deadline of eradicating FGM by 2022? Is that realistic?
That's what I'm going to, and I'm talking very fast because of the time. I am not even able to say what we have done in the last even 2 years in this 15 minutes. So we have done a lot. We have done a lot, and we are going to achieve, because earlier I had said the children under the age of 15 years, we are at 3%. What is the president saying? The president is not saying 21% will come to zero. You will not bring 21% to zero. Because I am a victim of FGM, I am in the 21%. I am still alive. So I am in that statistics. I'm still in the 4 million. What are we talking about? We are talking about my daughter, who is 22, who is at zero. She is not cut. It is about girls who are 15 years and below who have not been cut by 2022. That's what we are looking at. The 3% that we have for under 15, are we able to bring it to zero or to 1% or to 0.7%? That's what we are talking about. So when you are looking at the statistics, we want you people to understand, we are not talking of the 21%. The 21% remains because that's a statistic of women between 15 to 49. We are talking about the new cases of FGM, just like we are talking about new cases of HIV. How many people have gotten HIV in the last 6 months or in the last 2 months? So how many children or women have been cut in the since 2021 started? At least I'm here confidently to report that we've not had major cases. I don't think the reports we've had, maybe 1 or 2 of girls who have been cut between January and now. Maybe it's because we have more children being in school than out of school. Because this year we have had children in school more than out of school. Not like last year when we had COVID from March to December when we had children out of school. That one we can say we had an issue because children were out of school, and so they were not safe. That's when we realized that children are safer in school than at home. So for this year, we have at least made progress. We are not saying because of our work, but we are saying maybe because the children are more in school. But what I'm sure about, we are not where we were, even in 2019. We were not where we were in 2020. And 2022 for us, because we are giving ourselves 2022 December. By 2022 December, by the time we get our KDHS report, we are hoping we will be somewhere. But what we are seeing on the ground, with the people on the ground, we know sometimes because FGM has gone underground, people are not doing it anymore during the day or when people are seeing because of the law. We are seeing that FGM has gone underground. And why are we saying that we are bringing in the issue of community dialogues? Because we want our communities to work with us this journey. We don't want them to feel because the law will come for us, we will stop cutting or we will cut at night. We want them to agree that it is against the law and it's also against the human rights of this girl. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that information. And one thing I really like is the blend between the law and looking for cultural solutions to a cultural issue. I think that is quite interesting. And now to Omar, I've worked with you a lot as a journalist reporting so much about the work of AMREF, especially in the fight against female genital mutilation. And I would like to know what kind of interventions has, AMREF put in place, considering that we are still struggling, and for the first time we have that deadline of 2022. So what programs have you designed since the president made this declaration? And do you think that we are going to meet that deadline of 2022? Karibu sana, Omar.
Thank you so much. I first of all want to take this moment to appreciate the government of Kenya, of course, through the Anti-FGM board and other relevant ministry. I think the government of Kenya is committed to change, to seeing change. And we have seen this with the kind of dedication that even the CEO of the Anti-FGM board has had. And of course, other partners like the UN agencies and other NGOs and CBOs. So there's commitment from government, and that is what has actually galvanized even the current momentum to end FGM and other harmful practices in the country. So let me take this opportunity to really thank the government for showing leadership and really taking on challenging this harmful practice. So with regards to first of all, before I go to what we're doing at AMREF, just quickly to mention a few things. First of all, we are seeing, looking at the trends, is that there is some evidence of a trend over time suggesting that girls are undergoing FGMC at a younger age in Kenya. I think that is common knowledge now, that because of communities trying to evade the law, now they want to cut their girls when they are much younger. Recently, under the FCDO-funded Africa-led Movement Program, we conducted a political economic analysis, and we wanted to know what is the exact number of girls at risk of FGMC in Kenya. And so looking at the KDHS and the data that we were able to mine, we were able to determine that approximately 911,000 girls alive today in Kenya are estimated to be at risk of FGMC before they reach the age of 18 years. So this shows that, and also looking at data from UNFPA, there's so many girls who are continuously at risk, despite all the the efforts that we are doing. And so it will require a lot of efforts from communities themselves to stand strong and come up with interventions, or rather, so that they can come up with interventions that they feel would really harness ensuring that girls are are getting education, are in school, ensuring that girls are meaningfully engaged. I think that is the conversations we need to ask ourselves. Where is the girl when you talk about ending FGMC? Also, quickly to mention about the impact of COVID-19. So emerging data from different agencies, including the UN, indicate that COVID-19 has had a detrimental impact on declining rates of FGMC, and so with this in mind, I think we are operating in a very fragile environment. But even with that, the government and of course all actors have worked very hard to ensure that prevention services, and of course other forms of services are made available to most at-risk girls, and so that I think is very commendable. Also, just to quickly mention about as AMREF and what we're doing. So I think what is known of us as AMREF is working with communities. So we believe in community-based interventions. And as Loloju mentioned, I think for us, what has proved to work is effective community dialogues. So when we have communities having safe spaces where they can speak about this issue, without coercion, and knowing and admitting that there are members of the community who continue to support FGM. I think spaces where communities, we are able to bring all people, without judgment, to discuss and communicate about this issue is something that I believe has worked and will continue to work. Also, we also implementing alternative rites of passage. So with regards to alternative rites of passage, first of all, the alternative rituals to FGMC allow girls to undergo training and graduate to womanhood without being cut. And during this process, girls are also educated on different topics like human rights, the adverse effects of FGMC, and are encouraged to abandon the practice. So what we have come to realize that the approach seems to be most effective when it takes place at the end of a structured girls empowerment program and involves a community ceremony that is explicitly recognized as an alternative to undergoing FGMC. And also, from our work, we have also learned that alternative rites of passage are to be effective. It will require, to be effective, it will require a combination of behavior change support at the community level, law enforcement and monitoring, and open and persistent advocacy by diverse representatives of communities. So, some of the challenges on this intervention is some of the reasons that can limit the success of the ARP program commonly implemented in Kenya are the risk of exclusion, for instance, or perceived loss of cultural identity, changing meanings ascribed to cultural practices, lack of precise knowledge about subjective sexual experience, and negative stereotyping. So this is just to mention that, for instance, the ARP cannot work as a standalone approach, but can be more effective when it's aligned with schools-based engagement and other community interventions. And Also, I think we have also, all of us here come to realize that religious and cultural leaders can be effectively used to pass on messages to the community, especially in communities where religion and culture play a significant role in driving FGMC. So religious leaders are already at the forefront in questioning the religious underpinnings of the practice, and they're currently publicly declaring opposition to the practice. So the Anti-FGM Board, for instance, has worked in close collaboration with, for instance, the Qadi of Kenya, the former Qadi of Kenya, I believe, and the Islamic leadership publicly declared that, and they were able to delink FGM from Islam. And we have other activists like Sadia Hussein from Tana River, who are also, working with religious leaders to ensure that they're involved to be agents of change, because they have a lot of influence. And also something else that we have coming to realize with and especially with the recently concluded Global Education Summit, is that studies are showing that formal education exposes girls to new information, including health risks or other consequences of FGMC, as well as, on the illegal status of FGMC, and therefore plays a very significant role in the abandonment of the practice. So school-based health education is actually impactful in improving the knowledge of girls and changing the attitude of female students toward FGMC. And I really applaud the government of Kenya and the Anti-FGM Board and the UN agencies and of course other partners like the KICD in really working hard to ensure that that we will be able to have an FGM in our school, FGM education in our school curriculum, so that the children get an opportunity to learn about the dangers of FGM and how they can protect themselves, or where they could go when they feel that they're at risk. So also finally, as I conclude, is just to mention that I'm glad to see people like Tony Mwebia who are here. I think the role of men is really key, because men are decision makers and they are very critical actors in most families and communities. And so we have also seen that their engagement is critical in ending FGMC. And also finally, as I conclude, also the role of young people. And I think Ms. Bernadette Oloju has mentioned how the government and of course other partners are working closely with young people, because young people are critical actors. They're future parents, they're culture shapers, they're policy influencers, and they're able to challenge negative social norms. And so I'm happy that in Kenya we have a very strong, vibrant youth movement that is working to ensure that tomorrow these young people, when they become parents, they will not be able to cut their daughters. So let me stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Omar. We really see emphasis so much on community engagement. Basically, is going to where the problem is and reaching the people that are involved directly. So this is quite an interesting debate to show how we've gotten out of the boardroom, out of the laws, to try and look at how best effectively we can address FGM, and trying to see what we'll have achieved by the time we wait for the results, the research in 2022. So I know Caroline Murgu has requested that she leaves very soon. So Caroline, please, would like to hear from you what UNFPA has done. I know UNFPA has not only been doing the community work, but has also worked very closely with the journalists, the community media, and I too, as being a journalist, have done so much work with you. So I'd like to know, what have you done in relation to the 2022 deadline? And do you think this is still a far-fetched dream, or is it something that is actually achievable? And what differently have you done to ensure that now, at least you make that progress as we have anticipated? Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you very much, Judy, and good morning once again to everyone. Maybe just as Ishmael had mentioned, I could start by just commending the leadership of the government of Kenya. For some of us who've been in this movement for over a decade, we know where we have come from. We've come from a situation where you could not even hold community conversations with at the community level. It was very difficult to even just mention the word FGM, to where we are now, where we are engaging community members, engaging religious leaders, community elders, women groups. So we have come a very long way. And Kenya has been one of those countries that has steadily made progress towards whether it's engagement of community, working with journalists, the government itself putting measures in place. And one of the key issues, even as we are looking at what the commitment that was made by the president, people may not understand the significance of having that high level commitment. For over the years and over the decades that we've been in the campaign to end FGM, one of the things that we've been clamoring for is high level political commitment, because we know once we have that high level political commitment, we have an enabling policy and legal environment, then things work. So as you're working from the top, you're also working at the community level. So we've been, over the years, we've had organizations that have really supported this movement, that have been working very hard to ensure that we not only target the bottom-up approach, but as well as the moving up, going down. So for me, I would really commend and the leadership of the anti-FGM board with Madam Bernadette Loloju there. The board has really made strides from the time it was formed in 2019. The joint program on the elimination of FGM has been in Kenya, working in implementing its program since 2008. And our main agenda is to support government and other organizations, NGOs, INGOs, as well as community-based organizations, to be able to continue with the campaign to end FGM and implement its interventions. So just maybe a bit on the UNFPA and UNICEF joint program on the elimination of FGM. This is one of the largest global programs currently that is working towards accelerating the abandonment of harmful traditional practices. And in this case, what we're discussing issues of FGM. And with this as well, we are also looking at advancing the rights, the health and the well-being of women and girls as a whole. As I said, the joint program has been started in 2000, way back in 2008, and we are currently implementing phase 3 of the joint program, which started in 2018. And we can say phase 3 in Kenya specifically saw a lot of that that critical mass movement towards ending FGM. Basically, what the program is doing, it not only works in Kenya, but in 17 countries, in African countries in total. And we work very closely in partnership with governments, with civil society, with social movements. We also work closely with the religious leaders and with communities as a whole. So the approach of the joint program is basically looking at balancing the culturally sensitive interventions that we are currently undertaking, and also making sure that we have that emphasis on issues of human rights of women and girls, ensuring that women, their rights remain dignified, the women and girls remain healthy, and they remain whole. And so one of the key interventions that we have in the joint program is to accelerate as I said, the abandonment of FGM. But basically what we do is work closely with the governments to strengthen policy development as well as its implementation. And Madam Loloju has mentioned we have the national policy on the elimination of FGM. We have the national reproductive health policy, which even now has a section where it is looking at specifically on the role of healthcare and addressing issues of medicalization, where it explicitly states the sanctions against healthcare providers. So that is one of the biggest win that we have. So we work closely with the government of Kenya to ensure that we have policies that enabling environment as well as the implementation of the same. We also work towards improving access to healthcare protection for survivors and those at risk of FGM, as well as ensuring supporting survivors get access to legal services as well as social services, which is the safe spaces and shelters. And I believe Ishmael has mentioned a bit of that, because when you're engaging community dialogues under the community level, we have the issues of safe spaces and shelters for women and girls at risk of FGM. What the joint program also does is, through its implementing partners, is engaging community and educating people on the need to eliminate FGM. That is very critical. And here we are looking at issues of transforming social norms through collective action. So we also work very closely when it comes to supporting evidence-driven approaches. Ishmael has mentioned some of the studies that have come out, and also with UNFPA, we've been able to have research and data and analysis to improve the scientific knowledge, looking at trends, assessing the trends that are currently there. Ishmael had mentioned the issue of in Kenya now where children are being cut at a young age, even when they're as young as 2 weeks old, an infant stage. So those are some of assessing those trends, and how are we able to best shift our interventions to be able to address some of these issues, as well as make projections for the future, whether it's through financing or trying to ensure that we continue creating that awareness. So for Kenya in 2019, we saw that a really drastic move towards ending FGM when we had the high-level political commitment. We had the president make a commitment at the ICPD summit, the ICPD 25 summit, Nairobi summit, to end FGM by 2022. And this is part of the national commitments. In total, we have 17 national commitments, and the key is this one on ending FGM. And we've been working closely with the anti-FGM board as well as the ministry to ensure first to develop the presidential acceleration plan, the costed presidential acceleration plan, which the anti-FGM board has been spearheading with the implementation of the same and also reporting on the same. And one of the key things maybe to mention is with the acceleration plan, we've also had where we have they're called multi-agency or multi-agency coordination committees, which is made up of various line ministries. Because at the end of the day, as Bernadette has mentioned, it is the responsibility of each line ministry to be able to address this issue, because we are not only looking at health, we are also looking at the social well-being of women. We are looking at the issue of education, and also we are looking at the issue of security as well. And as the CEO had mentioned earlier in his opening remarks, there are communities now where we are seeing the re-emergence of FGM, and this is a very a worrying trend that is coming up. And also now, because in some of those counties, as he has mentioned, where it is now more where cults are driving, we also need to ensure that and the security sector does its work as well, because it is their responsibility as well to implement the presidential directive. So the board is working very closely with the other line ministries to ensure that that every duty bearer plays their role. And it is very important. Maybe what I can also mention is that we work closely as well with duty bearer training, duty bearers, where we have the police, the security sector, and also the surveillance mechanism, the security sector at the community level. We have the Nyumba Kumi. So they are also their role in terms of it's important for them to understand their role in the protection for women and girls, or upholding the rights of the women and girls. So I think as I said, we've made major strides. The strategies that we're currently using in Kenya are indeed working. If you look at where we are coming from to where we are now, and the country has also witnessed more community-led interventions, which is very critical. We have a massive movement of the young movement, and and Tony, you'll be mentioned quite a bit, so you'll be ready to talk. We have the men and FGM movement that have been working very well in engagement of men and boys. We have the work with the religious leaders. Just before the ICPD, we had religious leaders and cultural leaders from the 22 counties with the high prevalence of FGM make a commitment to support the president's commitment to end FGM by 2022. And we have seen massive movements. And as Bernadette has mentioned, in terms of getting to the zero, she's explained it very well. The question is, how do we then engage, make sure that every person or every community member takes that responsibility? Because if we do not have community ownership in ending FGM, then we will not make any strides. It is very important that even if we have the laws, we are implementing the laws and we have the prosecutions, that also communities feel involved and they take ownership in eliminating FGM. So it's very important that we have the buy-in of all the community members. That way we will be able to protect that specific age group where we want zero. We are looking to achieve zero. We have made a lot of strides. Yes, as Judy, you've mentioned, there are very many activists who have said the that deadline is unrealistic, but Madam CEO has put it very well. How do we then, because there is that, the 21% is there, but how do we make sure that that next generation attains zero, that we have zero girls who are being cut? So as I said, we need to make sure that we involve all the stakeholders who are in this field. As I said, involvement of duty bearers, engagement of men in the elimination of FGM is very important, engagement of young people. And as the new FGM trends emerge, it is very important that our prevention and response interventions remain flexible and always a step ahead. Because over the years, and Madam Loloju has also been in this movement for quite a while, she will tell you, every time you make a stride, communities change, tactics change. So how do we then make our interventions also remain flexible and make sure that they are a step ahead? As I said, it has to be, it's collective effort for everyone, for us to be able to eliminate the practice in totality. So, and as UNFPA, especially last year with the onset of COVID, where now a lot of services actually stopped, where we had the lockdown, most of the community, most of the organizations that were implementing at the, who had interventions at the community level were not able to go to the communities themselves to support. So what as UNFPA we did, and this is also, we worked closely with the anti-FGM board, was to support community-based organizations. And most of these community-based organizations were youth-led organizations, one of them being the Men End FGM, who are here with us today. We supported them to be able to continue with the community conversations because they are in the community themselves. They speak the language and they're able to reach the people where other services may have stopped or where other organizations could not reach. So it is very important to also strengthen the capacity of community-based organizations, whether it's faith-based organizations or any other organization at the community level. And what as UNFPA we've done, and through with in collaboration with our partner World Vision, is also build the capacity of these organizations. So it's not just about giving them the funds, but also building their capacity to ensure that they're able to sustain themselves even after funding is not there. So we've continued with that process again today, because if COVID has taught us anything, is to ensure that all the actors are involved, and the importance of being able to support those community-based or grassroots organizations that are actually the first point of contact with the community members. And so as I said, we continue supporting the government to ensure that the Presidential Acceleration Plan is implemented. We will continue with our concerted efforts to support that. And also one of the other important things that Madam Loloju had mentioned, and one of the declaration that she also did not mention, was the Loiter Declaration. And this was in Narok, and that was between Kenya and Tanzania, elders at the Kenya and Tanzania border. That was also a very critical declaration, as it led now to having the 5 countries, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Somalia, the governments of the 5 countries coming together to seek ways on addressing issues of cross-border FGM. As we said, if we as a country, we are aiming to get to zero, we will not be able to get zero if we do not involve our neighbors, because we know from it's common knowledge, the communities across our borders, they are from the same tribes. So there is that crossing over, whether it's Uganda and Kenya, Tanzania and Kenya. So it is very important that we also address those issues. So the 5 governments were able to come together and signed a declaration, and from that declaration we also had developed a key action plan, an costed action plan that is looking at addressing issues of cross-border FGM. So it is looking at the legal, the legal and policy environment. That is one of the key pillars. The other key pillars is on issue of research and data, because without data we will not be able to inform programming or inform policy. It is also looking at communication, and this is not just communication like with the mainstream communication, but also communication for change. How do you strengthen community conversations as well? And then it was also looking at the other critical area was that now the involvement of communities and ensuring that we continue, and the security sector especially. How do we involve them to ensure that they, sorry, yes, okay, yeah, yes. So I think for us, those are the key interventions that we've been doing, and there's quite a lot that is going on. And between now and December 2022, I know a lot will be happening. We have quite a lot of work to do, and especially with the areas where there is the re-emergence. But as we said, we concerted efforts, ownership for everyone, and as UNFPA, we continue supporting our partners and also working closely with the government to ensure that we reach the zero that we aim for. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And actually, this morning, it's quite important for us as journalists maybe to start thinking of closing the book of lamentations and probably look at, what's coming in the future, because as you can see, it's not always normal for the civil society organizations and NGOs to praise the government for, doing a good job. So yes, sometimes I think it's always good to recognize the progress that has been made, the efforts that have been made so far, and even we can see the approach that is changing to fit the challenge at hand, the community engagement that is coming there. Again, what's interesting for us, especially the journalists, is what does it mean when the president made the declaration of zero, female genital mutilation by 2022. What does that mean? I would be really rushing to follow this up and do a story on that, what that meant. It's a very interesting angle and a different way of looking at this deadline. Again, is the changing tactics and the reemergence of new ways of doing female genital mutilation. I think these are some of the interest areas that we should focus on as journalists to ensure that we bring out those gaps or we bring these issues to the table for our discussion. But now I open the floor for questions. I've seen some of them on the chat, but I give this chance to somebody who wants to ask a question to switch on the microphone and the camera, and feel free to ask the question or direct the question to any of the speakers. Karibu.
Sorry, Judy, before they come in, I really have to apologize. I have another session that is coming up very, but I'm available to respond to any questions that may be directed to UNFPA. Maybe Mustafa can share with me via email and I'll be able to respond, or you can reach out to me. I really apologize, but I have to go for my next session. I'm late.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. I know you already told me this in the chat, but thank you very much, at least for sacrificing that time and making at least some moments to talk to us. Thank you so much. We'll get in touch in case of any questions. We'll direct them to you. Asante sana, Caroline.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you to everyone.
So as we wait for more questions, there's a question from Boniface Gikandi, and this one is directed to the CEO at FGM board. What's the assistance given to the support groups in the villages towards eradication of the culture? This is for Loloju. So it's what's the assistance given to the support groups in the villages towards eradication of the culture?
So I don't know whether it's psychosocial support or economical support, but what I can say is that what we have done is connect our champions, because we have champions at the community level. We have different people who are working with CBOs and have their own CBOs. We have activists at the community level, and they're the ones who mostly engage with the others and with the support groups. So what I can say is that what we have done is that we have devolved the FGM campaign by having the county anti-FGM steering committees in place. So in the 22 counties with high prevalence, we have the county anti-FGM steering committees that we launched in October, some in November and some in December last year. We are following up in the next 3 months to continue with capacity building of these county anti-FGM steering committees. Some are doing very well and some counties are not doing very well. And that's why we have to do follow-up with them. So these county anti-FGM steering committees are the ones that work on their own work plans, and they are supported by the NGOs and the CBOs that are present in those counties, or even the government itself, the county government. In some counties, the county government has picked the action plan and even supported implementation of the action plan. And then we have our own, if it's economic empowerment, we have the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, we have the Women Enterprise Fund, and we have the WESO Fund. These are some of the funds that we have connected with some of our beneficiaries. Like I can say in Kajiado, we have women who have downed their tools. We call them reformed circumcisers, women who used to circumcise girls, but were reformed. In 2017, we had a declaration by these circumcisers from Kajiado, and they were able to access 500,000 from Uwezo Fund, which they've used to buy their own kettle, and they're able now to use that as their alternative livelihood instead of cutting the girls. So economically, the government has put in place women funds that women can access, or even young people can access, so that they can be able to have alternatives, especially for women who took FGM as a way of getting their bread. We are able to connect them to these government agencies. Then for psychosocial support, that's where we have a bit of a challenge. But what we have done is that we have worked with an organization called Spread Truth Africa, and we have come up with a curriculum, a psychosocial curriculum that we have been that we launched in this is August, so that was June, in Kajiado County at AIC Girls. AIC Girls Kajiado is a school where most girls who have been rescued from FGM and child marriage are taken. So what we realized is that most of these girls go through a lot of mental anguish, because sometimes you've run away from home, your father wanted to sell you off to an old man, maybe has already taken the money or the bride price, and then you have run away. So your father has been left, he has no girl to give away to the person he was selling you, he was taking you to be married to, and he has already taken the cows. So your dad sometimes curses you and says, I've cursed you, you are not my child. And you know, you go
Have we lost her, or it's just me?
I think we've lost Winnie.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, meanwhile, as we wait for her to be back, Helen Kadogo, please, let's hear your question. Helen Kadogo, your hand is up. Okay, there's another question for her, but I don't know if she'll be back. Any other question as we wait for her to try and log back? Or meanwhile, we can have any other speaker. Maybe this time we have Omar alone here for the time being. The question was directed to the CEO, why we still have communities practicing FGM, even with the strategic interventions by the government. What are the gaps? Maybe Omar, if you can be able to help us answer that question.
Yeah, so let me, maybe if you can stand in for her as maybe she tries to log in. I think one of the main reason why FGM continues to be perpetuated is because of the deeply rooted social norms, and of course social and gender norms. I think that's so the root causes for FGMC in Kenya, they differ, and all of them are manifestations of the control that society exercises over women in stark comparison to men, whether the reasons for FGMC revolve around the perceived need to preserve girls' virginity or to control female sexuality, social expectations associated with family honor, anticipation of higher dowries for females perceived as beautiful or chaste due to their FGMC status, or the fact that anti-FGMC laws are not enforced. So the societal incentives and repercussions associated with FGMC help perpetuate the practice and the inequalities it endangers. So another thing maybe I can mention is right now there's also a link between FGMC and climate change. So there's a recent study that has been conducted by some of our AMREP staff that has been able to show or highlight the link between FGMC and climate change. So in Kajiado, and of course in the northern part of Kenya, and especially in the arid and semi-arid areas, we've continuously seen girls being cut and then married off because of course, for economic incentives. You find that a family is actually reeling in abject poverty, and so for them to come out of that shackle, then they end up actually selling their girls. And again, I guess that is something that we are continuously looking at how best to address, that challenge. Also, I think another thing maybe I will talk about is I think you find that FGM is over 90% in the northeastern areas, and especially among the Somali, Borana communities. I think the main reason why FGM is very high prevalent is because of, I will say, false doctrine that the basis that FGM is is a religious requirement, or rather is a religious obligation. So that in itself is a very key issue why Muslims continue to do that. But even the what is the name, the grand from Egypt, the sort of the sheikh of from Egypt and even Saudi Arabia. So high Islamic scholars have been able to delink FGM from Islam. And so I think right now what we need is more conversations with religious leaders to just bring that conversations with communities. And that is the only way we will be able to convince and persuade practicing communities, especially from the northern eastern region.
Thank you very much for standing in for her. I don't know if you're able to have her back. Helen, I don't know whether you still, I think your hand is up accidentally. I've been calling you, but I'm not getting you. I don't know if it's accidentally.
Sorry. I'm here, but I was in another call. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
yes.
Thank you so much for having me on board. And this is the topic at heart, and core business of One More Day for Children Foundation. One More Day for Children Foundation is based in Laikipia, but and it has a safe house for girls, the survivors of gender-based violence, which mostly is FGM, child marriages, beating, as well as other sexual crimes. And some of them come from Meru, are rescued from Isiolo County, and also part of Samburu County. Therefore, it is a big institution hosting more than 100 girls, and that's fun up to now. Since 2009, it has been able to rescue and rehabilitate more than 2,000 girls. This is an approach that we use is where you bring professionalism into addressing these cultural issues. That meaning that it was founded not because of one tribe or two tribe, but multi-sectoral approach where we are having doctors in the board, we are having social workers, we are having lawyers, we are having community development, we are having other agents to do with the gender. And they came together to form this wonderful philanthropic outfit, which is really doing well. And the government came in to support the work and gave 11 acres of land where we have put this safe house for girls. Now, down now
Ellen,
to—
Can I just give you a minute, please? So that's because we're running out of time.
Yes, so now to my questions. I thought it was a round table, so I thought that everybody will have a chance, but it's okay. Number one, maybe I'll just enumerate them. It's about the steering committees at the county level, like my sister has alluded to, that is Roroju. Yes, some counties are doing very well, others are not doing very well. And those who are like in Laikipia, we need some checks because the steering committee is there by name, and no civil society that was put on board. And this one is not working at all. The other thing is about donor fatigue, that most of these efforts towards eradication or minimizing of this FGM, you get that the donors' calls are mostly directed to the bigger organization, not grassroots organizations, and therefore you are forced even to push or to amend your proposal to fit whatever the donor needs, though you know that is not the strategy that can work on the ground. So I request that you people who sit in the donor round table, you can advise them so that we are able to also work together. The other thing is survivors' welfare. We've been talking and having meetings, we are having seminars and all that, but then we are forgetting the ultimate beneficiary or person who is survivors. We need to have also a program directed to the survivors, in that they can even have a tag like a NEMIS in schools, so that they are tracked right from when they are rescued up to when they are self-reliant. This way will help other communities also learn through that number, and also the government can also give scholarship to them. The other thing is safe houses support. Also, you get that when proposals are being called upon, you'll hardly hear about the funding to the safe houses. We need also to see the government, that is GEC and maybe anti-FGM board, coming together and also supporting the existing safe houses before establishing the new ones. The other one is the coordination of the activities to do with FGM in the country. We were having a meeting with Girls Not Bride, and we observed that there's a lack of proper coordination. We are having more than 4 agencies of the government, and each working with its own strategies and policies. So they come together and you see they are conflicting. So we are having people like a National Gender and Equality Commission, we have anti-FGM, we have gender and whatever ministry, and we have National Council for Children's Services. They are not talking together, they are not having the same policy, and therefore even prosecuting some of these cases and also creating awareness is becoming an issue. And finally is the personal commitment to the girl officials, the county commissioners. Most of them are living in that old world where they came from, the community that is practicing the FGM. And therefore civil society on the ground are being tagged like problem makers or that A, B, and C. Wachaneni na culture. So we are not reading because from the same point, because the chiefs are being involved in this. And once you rescue the girl, it becomes very hard to even have the person arraigned court or otherwise. So you are stuck with the case. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. In fact, it will be very nice of you to join the next panel that is will be led by Jeremiah. It's talking about the challenges of addressing female genital mutilation. So it will be very nice if you could share some of the challenges in that coming session. And now, since we have Madame Loloju back, the problem, I think she was saved as Mustafa. Oh yeah, there you are. So
I corrected my name. I don't know why I'm still reading Mustafa. Can someone help? I tried to correct from my end and it had corrected.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry about that.
I think my network went off.
Yeah, no worries.
And I was talking about psychosocial. I was talking about psychosocial support.
Yes.
Let me just finish about the psychosocial.
Can I just read for you to understand all of them together?
Yeah, please do.
Yes, Omar had helped us answer on your behalf, but I have others that are related to the first one that had been asked. So Faith Mwirodi is asking, when you look at the FGM situation in the country and the law, you'll see that most communities are resisting the law. Majority feel that it does not respect their culture. What is being done to provoke social change and to efficiently protect women and girls from FGM? I know you've spoken quite widely on this, but it doesn't matter, just clarifying for Faith Mwirodi. Probably she's working on a story on that. And then Nancy Agutu is asking, Nancy Agutu, why are some girls still facing stigma if they don't get cut? Is FGM still a stigma? Again, Nancy, okay. And yes, the second question is, I know it's the same one. Yes, I think that's it. So if you can answer those 2 questions, then that will be good for us so that we are at least in time for the next session. Welcome, Madam Loloju.
Yeah, so I think I was finishing on the psychosocial support. That's an area we are working on, just to make sure that women get the confidence to know that there is someone who can listen to them. At the moment, we have a doctor who is doing reconstructive surgery for women who have suffered FGM. Obviously, he will not get you back to the way God created you, but at least you will have been given some treatment and some hope and some personal confidence that, and some have really been, have gone through FGM. It has affected their marriages, it has affected their life, their way of doing things. So they need psychosocial support, and at the same time, they need support even to go through that reconstructive surgery, because it's a very expensive affair. It's not for every woman. It's, at the moment, only the women who have the money are able to access. So that's an area also we are seeing. How best can we have those women get their bodies back or their confidence back? And then I would want to talk about the stigma. FGM, especially in our communities, makes people really feel like they are being stigmatized, because the environment where you are brought in, the environment where you are brought up, maybe people believe that you should go through FGM, that if you don't go through FGM, then you're not woman enough. The only way those girls can be saved is by us really focusing, as Ishmael had said earlier, on the girl herself, which is something that we are already working on, because we already worked on inclusion of FGM content into the school curriculum with Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. So already FGM is an issue that is coming up in the curriculum. A child of grade 3, grade 4, in their textbooks, there's a question about harmful cultural practices. FGM comes in, is one of them, and the children are explained to what it means to go through FGM. So we are hoping our next generation of children will grow up or will realize that someone is harming them. Because when I was growing up, for me, it was not a harm. I thought it was the right thing for me. So what we are trying to say now is that it is a harm for you. This is something that we are trying as much as possible to work with the Ministry of Education. As we've been told, the Ministry of Education is part of the multi-agency technical team that has been formed. President gave the directive, because they mean that children are in school. So if a child is not in school, then it's the ministry to find out why is that child not in school. And most of the time, either that child has gone through FGM and has been married off. And all the rescues that you are hearing, even Helen talking about, most of them, it's through schools. Sometimes a child has not gone to school, and then they realize that that child is missing. And so that's how they get to know that this child was getting married off. So stigma is still there. We cannot say that stigma is out. Stigma is still there, especially in communities that practice FGM. When you talk of Samburu, West Pokot, let me not talk about the Somali. The Somali do it, but you will never know that a girl has gone through FGM in a Somali community. Even we have, I think, zero if we look at our prosecution in the Somali community, because they make it very secretive, and children are taken through FGM at 5, 6, 7 years when they don't even know what has happened to them. So you find that stigma is mostly in communities where FGM is done as a rite of passage, like among the Maasai. So when you're 13 years, you're 14 years, you're 15 years, you already know your body. So girls will to school and you know I was done for FGM. You are not traumatized. So what we are saying is that the more we have girls who are saying no, then the stigma will go down. Now you are the one who has been cut will be stigmatized, not the one who is not cut. Because at the moment in my age, I'm the one who will be stigmatized. If I say I have been cut, I'm the one who will feel like I'm not, I don't fit into the society. But the younger girls at the community level feel stigmatized if they've not been cut. So what are we doing about it? Health clubs in schools, a peer education among the girls themselves, and also making the boys now assure the girls that you are okay the way God created you. That's why we are bringing in the conversation of the men coming in, even young boys, not only the bigger men, but also the young boys, to tell the girls and assure them that you're okay the way God created.
Thank you very much, Madam Loloju. I wish to thank all the panelists for taking us through this session. We've heard about the different interventions they are doing. And remember, there was a question on that, but it's really been tackled in most of the presentations. That was one of the questions by Boirori. And because of time, I think we can actually work with what was already answered during the presentation. So thank you very much to the panelists. Omar Murgo, thank you so much for such an exciting conversation. And my takeaway is that Kenya has made, progressive steps towards addressing female genital mutilation, and the way of looking at the achievement of the zero the FGM, the declaration by the president. So I think those are some of the interesting aspects that I think as journalists we can be able to pursue and come up with very interesting stories. So, and now I give this to Jeremiah Kipanoi to take us through the next session. Karibu sana, Jeremiah, and thank you very much, the rest of the participants, for actively participating in the session.
Thanks a lot, Judy. Asante sana, and hello to everyone who's here today. My name is Jeremiah Kipanoi, and I've worked a lot in the end-FGM world here in Kenya, working with most of you actually here. And I'm just going to take you through a session on the challenges that we really are facing on the ground. Say gloves off, and let's just speak as it is and see how we could work better together. So again, I say karibuni sana. Please feel free to ask any questions on the chat box, and yeah, raise your hand if anything comes up as we have this conversation. So on your end, raise up your hand. It's a roundtable session, and we will be able to kickstart this. But first, I'd like to start off with a gentleman who comes from one of the most prominent Council of Elders. They are from the JHR-Kenya. We know that they made a declaration in the Meru community in 1956 at Nchiru, and also reiterated it in 2009 and in the Kinoru Stadium, just saying that the JHR-Kenya do not support FGM. But still, this community is at 31% according to KDHS 2014, and here we are asking, why is FGM going on to date? So I'm going to introduce to you Josephat Mwangiri, who is a JHR-Kenya Council of Elder, and he's just going to speak very briefly about FGM in Meru. Why is it continuing? Karibu.
Jeremiah, unfortunately, Joseph had to leave. I've tried to side chat him, but I think it was unavoidable completely.
Perfect, no worries at all. So we just opened this and make it a roundtable today. We are basically looking at FGM. We've had policies, we've had laws, we've heard about the interventions from national and global organizations working in Kenya to end FGM. Still, the prevalence, as we've seen, is still high. From the Somalis at 94% to the Kisii people, high in medicalization at 86%. We're still looking at the Samburu, still at 84%, and the Maasai 78%. Look at those numbers are still quite high. And we're just asking, and we are here as journalists and activists as well, why is it going on? I'll just have it open, and we will just have this conversation very frankly. Why do we still have FGM in our communities? I know we've heard a lot about the interventions that are being done, what the president has said, the promises made, but we've also had conversations around communities that it's us to end the FGM in our communities. So I'll just make it open. Please raise up your hand. If there is something that you feel is not covered, I know that Helen Gadogo had already started this conversation actually on what should be done and what the challenges really are on the ground and what is not being done, because I think it's also good for us to listen to each other. It's a round table. So karibuni sana. Stephen Otieno, if you can open up that as well, that would be really nice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeremiah. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Yeah, Thank you so much for the opportunity. I've been following through since I joined, and it's true that FGM is still prevalent. I'm actually doing another story currently on FGM, and on why it still exists. There's a cornucopia of factors, but I think the greatest thing that still hinders this fight is this thing we call culture. You know, culture is, you can't touch it, and it's so embedded in some people so deeply that I met a lady, though I was not allowed to talk to her, but the thing is, she was rescued and actually ran away from the rescue center because she said she wanted to get married. So you can imagine such a mentality for a 15-year-old who's been through the entire primary school and she had just joined Form 1. So the rescue center could do nothing to hold her there, and she disappeared. They have never got her again. So this was somewhere in Korea East where FGM is still very real. It's not something that can be spoken of. It's not even spoken of privately. It's like, wametairishwa. Are you ready for marriage? Wamekutairi. It's something that's so embedded in them. And then the other thing is the miseducation. You know, when you're told if you don't have FGM or if you've not been cut, then you cannot be married because you are not yet a full woman. And it's something that is also added into your perception to be part of the culture. So the girls are miseducated, the community itself is miseducated. Some elders, especially in Korea, you find that there's a cross-border exchange whereby I have my aunt in Tanzania. So if I cannot be cut in Migori, Kenya, it's as simple as going to Isebania, crossing over to my aunt in Tanzania, probably where maybe the law may not be as harsh as ours, though I know they are anti-FGM, and they have it there. So you think kids are going for their holidays, April, August, December, but they're going for the cut. By the time they're back in 5 weeks, they're already healing. So you realize that porous borders also is still an issue, especially up there. And also I know in Kajiado down there, Namanga, I spoke with one of their OCPDs in Kajiado South less than 2 weeks ago. And he's saying in the past 4 months, they've had to rescue like 3 girls who had already been married off after being cut. And when they went there, it was so hostile that they had to go back home to re-strategize and go there as a full team with the police, and even getting elders to show them where this girl is hidden is a problem. So there are some elders who they're still in that old mentality. Then there's this other issue for secrecy, whereby girls and boys, when they're still very old, especially in the rural setting, whereby they have not started adding braids to their hair and everything, they look alike. They look alike completely. So you find girls are being given shots, and they're even being told to walk with their hands on their private parts, the way young boys do. So you find that it's really hard to really pinpoint that this perhaps could be a girl, she's been cut, and she's actually in pain. Why? Because they've been told, if anyone asks you, just say you are a boy, na umetoka kususu. So there's a lot of things. And the other thing was, like last year in the COVID period, in Korea, there were 2 FGM ceremonies. They call it an initiation rite. I call it FGM because it's basically mutilation and cutting. So there were 2 as opposed to 1, because, there are 4 sub-tribes in the Korea, whereby each year it's one community doing. So you can imagine when 2 are doing it, so the number is double. And they're not doing it at the times that they were used to. They're doing it as late as, or as early as 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., it's done. So if police even had intel that it will happen tomorrow, by the time they're getting there at 6 or 7 in the morning, the ceremony is so done. The people are gone. And some chiefs
I think that's, yeah, I'll cut you short, Stephen. I know that there are a lot of dynamics in, especially in Korea and those cross-border countries. But from your perspective, you work with the Nation newspaper, and you have been covering all this area in the long run. As a journalist, I know that there are things that you have seen. Some of them are done underwater. Sometimes you do interviews with people who are not genuine to you, but just focusing on the issues that are there right now. Yes, that's where we are at now. Those are the dynamics. But for the problems that we are facing, what needs to be done?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And I think there, for once, I'll be self-critical to we as the media, whereby you find that our media nowadays, we really focus on elections, BBI, politics, and we are really not dealing with the real issues. Real issues. Other than FGM, we know the issues like environment, the issues like climate change. But now back to FGM, you find you can be given 3 days to go conduct a story in some remote parts of Kenya, and they need that story then. And then there's an immediacy that is not helpful in our media houses. So if I wish editors were here and understand that there's some issues that need proper highlighting, proper timing, and of course, proper funding, because we cannot highlight these issues in press conferences whereby we are sitting with the Minister for Gender and getting to hear from her. So I think more investment by the media fraternity to just empower their journalists to go there. Then the other thing, I think we need to have a very good relationship with the CBOs and NGOs who are working in the field, because most journalists or editors dismiss NGOs mostly because they think they just want publicity. But you find that these are the people who know what is happening on the ground. In fact, most of the data we rely on comes from the NGOs and CBOs. So I think those two things can be a very great point to start with. And I wish next time editors and some of the bigwigs in the media houses be here, so that they understand that we really need funding to do these stories. And the other thing is, let us not just dismiss NGOs and CBOs as people who want publicity. These are people who are driven by passion, most of them, I can say, and they are people who really want to have change. So we cannot go on dismissing them anymore. Yeah, I think those two will be really great.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. We were just hearing from Caroline Murgo from UNFPN saying that it's really important to have a high-level political commitment towards ending FGM, and you saw generally that the president himself made a declaration that is going to end FGM by 2022. And the question that Jody asked is, what does the president's promise to end FGM really mean? For us sitting down here, we have a lot of work going on as we speak to end FGM, from the media to grassroots activism, under the tree meetings, policies in the county governments as well as in the national government. And questions are always asked: why do we have policies in the national government as well as policies in the county government, and the law is one at the end of the day? So it's an open discussion. What are the challenges that we are facing right now, and where do we want to go with them? What needs to be done in the long run? I'd like to open that question right now, but thank you very much, Steve. You can still chip in as we go on. I see a lot of comments in the chat box. And Bernadette says, the law alone cannot be used to end FGM. This makes the community feel like it's the government against them. We have to have the community buy-in for us to end FGM and other harmful cultural practices. And that's why the strategy now is more of community dialogue. What's your say? I just still have an open mic because it's a roundtable. What are the problems and what needs to be done? Feel free to raise up your hand and we will go for it. I also see Wanjiru Masharias who says, sorry, that secrecy is making. Is there feedback? I think from Helen. Okay, I'll let you go. Okay, I'll let you go, Helen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Media is like my friend there has alluded to, really is like scavenging for news. Because when it comes to FGM, this is something that is done in secrecy and high secrecy. He has already even talked about what has been happening somewhere up there at Northeastern, that when it is, when you think it is boys being secluded for circumcision, Kube, in the same Lorora, they are called Lororas, is where the girls are, and they are being circumcised behind that. Now, when it comes to media, in such circumstances, it will be very, very hard for them even to know what is really happening and capture the moment there and there. You know, even FGM itself, it's a security issue. You can even be harmed. Yeah, you can be harmed. And when you see even some chiefs and elders also, like they are like, no, I wouldn't like to say or show you which child, which bomber, which manyata, in fear of my family being cast. Now, if you look at what we are talking about, you see right now, what has brought back with a boom this practice is the prevailing circumstances or brought about by the COVID-19. We were 10 steps ahead. And I repeat, we were 10 steps ahead. We have been brought backward more than even 10 steps behind because of these regulation, MOH regulations, closure of schools, closure of safe spaces, and all like. Now, me, what I would like to say is, yes, law, let's talk about the law and crime. If an act of parliament has been enacted and they signed into law, and here we are having the head of the state as committing himself to the whole world, then these laws and strategies are there to help him, you know, realize his vision. Now, we as the grassroots organizations, we are here to follow these guidelines, these whatever, to do that. Number one, I realize, yes, there must always be something called awareness creation, as well as trainings, advocacy, formation of some entities to help that. Now, that has taken a long, a lot of money, a lot of resources, and right now we are back to doing it. You want to tell me that awareness has never been created? You want to tell me that it's happening because people do not know? You want to tell me that the communities is back practicing it because now they don't know that it's harmful? No. So when it comes to now law and culture and law, at some point the law has to take the precedence. Yes, because you create awareness on the harmful practices. Why is it harmful? A, B, and C. Here you have a girl is bleeding or is running away, and then when you arrest and then take lend somebody to court, then you are committing a crime. It will not work otherwise. We need also to have a carrot and stick, like Loloju always tell us. Have a carrot and stick, you know, way of working. So you create awareness, you spend a lot of money, you spend a lot of resources, you'll spend a lot of, yet the same gatekeepers are the ones perpetuating or perpetrating the same crime. So when you talk to journalists, me, I like them because I work with them very closely. But there's coverage. Not many cultural leaders will tell you, come, ni hapa sasa inafanyika. The journalists will not. Others even don't want to be highlighted. They tell you, don't mention me. So FGM is something that is really, and you cannot go removing clothes of girls to know who has been cut and who has not been cut.
It's true. It's
true,
Helen.
It's true,
Helen.
Right, what I've just
suggested.
Let me just cut you short there. Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I know.
Sorry.
I just request that you. Because there's a lot of feedback.
Okay. So what I was going to finish up is, I want to still insist, just like Ministry of Education is doing, tag the girls that have been rescued and the survivors. Let's have them registered, given a certain number, so that they are followed up to the end of their life, so that they can also act as a motivator of others to run away, and also to persuade the community against the vice. And also, let us have the government focusing on safe houses, and also bringing in the programs and funding those programs directly there, so that it becomes a changing point and a safe haven
We don't need to have girls there staying there because there's no arresting, no nothing has happened. And then finally, coordination. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Helen. Those are really good points. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much for that.
So we have we have a lot of
conversations
chat
going
box,
on
and I would request
Helen
to your microphone. There's some feedback. All right, thank you very much. We've had a lot of conversations going on the chat box, and I think the biggest question, and I think Helen has mentioned it, is that there are many challenges on the ground, from the law, which is also a contentious issue for different people in terms of culture versus imposition, and the law as is supposed to take its course. I see the CEO also mentioned the same on the chat box, so you can just keep on going on with the conversation there, and it's going to be probably read and documented later. But so what next? Because you are speaking about how do we engage, what are the dynamics that we have, and I think I'll bring in Madam Lolojo as well. We've had issues to do with the law, and you yourself also talks about the law and having the buy-in of the community in the long run. So if you can just clarify that, what steps are we taking to make sure that there is a balance between the law itself and having the buying in of the community?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kipainoi. I know you've been in this field for quite some time, but I know I've been in this field longer than you. I started this when I was working at the community level, where it was a bit of many years ago. And by that time, we were using the Children's Act, which just had one clause on FGM before the Prohibition of FGM Act was put in place. And what happened is that at that time, we used to work closely with the children officers at the county, at that time it was at the district level, because the counties were not yet there. So for us, we were working very closely with the children officers. At that time, there were no, I think there was no even office of the DPP. So we would report directly, go to the children's office, then have ourselves, we go to the police station, and then from there we connect and we are able to make sure that the girls get their rights. But now we are many, many steps ahead, because what has happened is that now we have the Prohibition of FGM Act, which is even better than the Children's Act we used. But now we are using both the Children's Act and we also have the Prohibition of FGM Act. So you can imagine now we have an act that is just focusing on FGM alone. I tell people I'm just a CEO of one thing, FGM. Mine is to end FGM. The moment I have zero FGM, then I have no job. And then people tell me that then you're getting yourself out of a job. And I say, it's okay. We need to be zero, because even the communities, when I was working with them, I told them, don't allow us to be coming all the time to you to tell you to end FGM. Please stop it, because we are being paid to come. So this money better be used for something else, like paying school fees or making sure girls remain in school and all that. So when I came to the board, my first assignment was to make sure that we have a carrot. We don't always have to use the stick. I know the stick is good, but let's have a carrot. Let's have conversations. We realized that when we went to the community last year, when we were doing the elders engagement in Samburu County, we realized the elders did not even know what we are talking about. They knew FGM happens, but they didn't know what is this FGM. It's a rite of passage. It's something we also found when we grew up. So we are just going on with it because it was something that was there. And they were wondering, why is the government coming and taking us to court? Why are you taking us to court for doing our own cultural issues? And that's when we walked with them the journey and told them, yes, would the government love your children more than you love them? We know that you love your children. We know that you think FGM is right for them. But the consequences or what the suffering these girls and women go through is number 1, 2, 3, 4. And you know, the communities were reaching to an aha moment, and the elders were like, you mean that's what happens? You mean that's why we have these problems when women are giving birth? You mean that's why we are having this and this and that? And you know, we kept on telling them, even taking a child to get married at 10 years, Is that a wife? Is that what? Who is that? A 10-year-old or an 11-year-old? So we kept on explaining to them, and we realized that the communities themselves do not understand why you are telling them to stop FGM. So the issue here is to answer the question why. Why? So answer the question first. Why should I stop? Yeah. Before you come and bring policemen and put me into a police vehicle and take me to court and tell me that I've done something wrong. Tell me first why you are telling me to stop. And that is why now we are focusing more on community dialogues, using the media to reach our people. Yes, we are at awareness creation at 100%, but awareness creation where we have told the community there is a law in place and you will be taken to court if you do FGM. So there's this other awareness creation of saying, why are you telling me not to cut my daughter? So we need to have a buy-in, have the communities agree with us. Why? After we say why, then from there they become our champions. Then the more champions you have, both men and women, the more we will work towards zero. So what we are doing is a safari. We are in a journey that started with one step. And what I'm saying, every day we are winning this campaign, and every day, even the president coming in and bringing his voice, for us, it was a very big step towards zero. In fact, if the president did not talk, we would not have a buy-in from our security agencies. I know the complaint we have so much is about our chiefs, our assistant chiefs at the community level. One thing we should understand is that some of these chiefs are elders. Like in the Samburu community, a chief is he has a clan, he is an elder in a certain age group. So he has some roots from his own age set, and then now he has a job as a chief. So how do you help this person to continue still being an elder in the community, but become a government officer? Because he will always hide. He's hiding from his boss, he's also hiding from his community. So this person is between a rock and a hard place. But this person has to implement the law, because if he does not implement the law, then he will be sacked from his job. But at the same time, if he's not working with his age set, then the age set will also, you see, so that's why I'm talking about the stick and the carrot. The chiefs have to do their job. But you know, there's something called passion in ending something, and there's something called doing a job. I might also be here just doing a job and not passionately fighting FGM. And even in journalism, are we having journalists who are writing about FGM sincerely because they want to inform the communities? Or are we also just writing to show that nothing is being done to end this fight? So we also have to look at all that.
That wraps us up. Thank you very much, Madam CEO. I know that Helen had touched on that, as well as we have journalists here who would wonder, why do we have a chief who does not specifically address these issues? One thing that I took away from what you said and what discussion we've had is we are all different, and different communities approach FGM differently. And so we have to use different ways and mechanisms, just adapting to the situations that we have to try to protect the girls. As you said, focusing on that one girl is the most important thing, that we save that one girl and we'll end FGM. About ending FGM in 2022, I'll probably leave that to more conversations in future, but I had where the goals are heading to right now, and we'll be following keenly. I'll pass this to Ishmael, and we will wrap it up. Ishmael.
Yeah, mine is just a quick one to just reiterate what Madam Loloju is saying. I think even us as journalists, it is our chance to reframe the language that we use when it comes to addressing or highlighting issues to do with FGMC. The questions I want to ask you: is FGM a cultural practice? Is FGM a religious requirement? Is FGMC African? You know, these are the questions we need to ask ourselves. FGMC is a human rights violation. FGMC is a form of child abuse. So leave alone even just cutting the girl. Touching the genitalia of a child for whatever reason, it is in itself a form of child abuse. And I think by transforming and changing the narrative, even us as journalists or even as people who are working in the development sector, it is time for us to see FGM for what it is. FGM is a form of child abuse because the trauma that comes with it is a lifelong mental health challenge. Women and girls, of course I cannot speak on behalf of women and girls who have undergone FGMC, but I believe what Gadogo was saying, that also it is time that we also support, survivors of FGMC, women who have undergone this practice, women who have seen the effects of FGM firsthand, and we build their capacity to be able, and also to be able to, raise awareness in different platforms. That will be another strategies on how we can be able to address FGM. But my takeaway for all of us is it is time to reframe the language. And also we need to have a balance also, because you cannot go to somebody's community and tell them, hey, FGM is FGM is a back, your culture is backward. So even the kind of language we use when you go to communities needs to change, but that doesn't mean that we need to continuously to change the narrative and emphasize that FGM is a form of child abuse, and it's a form of human rights violation. Yeah, let me stop at that.
Thanks very much, Ishmael. I know this is actually a debate, and I wouldn't want to extend past there, but I think it would be nice to have this conversation on a later date, or probably would be extended by Mustafa when he takes over. But how we word, how we frame, as you said, from violation to cultural practice, and what impact does that have? Question to the journalists is, does that work in the media in the long run? How you frame? Because I know that there's also some struggle between journalists and the CSOs, where CSOs have terms and journalists probably would not want to adjust to that. But I'll just pass that to Mustafa as we take it out. And thank you very much for participating. We look forward to having a longer session next time. And we'll have these conversations again. Asante sana.
Thank you so much, Joby Maria, for your wonderful moderation of this session, and also just to thank, before you was Judy Kabiria, who also moderated the previous session. And I'm sure if there's anything to take away from here, and I would like to borrow from Ismail's words, that it is time. And I think the biggest takeaway for me is really to emphasize that, yes, we have the dynamics of the culture, we have the dynamics of religion, we have all these dynamics. But again, we are a society of laws, and we are a society of a structure. And at this point, FGMC is a fundamental human rights violation. And as journalists, as people working as campaigners, as government, as a community and a society, we all have a duty, we all have a responsibility to take action to end FGM and also prosecute perpetrators of FGM. So for journalists, I hope this has, and for everyone else, I hope this morning sessions have been quite fruitful for you. I hope it's worth your time, and I hope we've all learned something out of this engagement. And to thank Madam Bernadette Loluju from the Anti-FGM Board, to thank Ismail Umar from Amrefeld Africa, and Helen, and everyone who has been here this morning to contribute to these conversations. And I hope these conversations worth your while. We definitely will continue with the conversation. This is not the end of the conversation. We're going to look out for invitation from us, and we're looking forward to collaborating and working with you all. I have been texting and chatting with Madam Luluju on the side. Definitely there are rooms for us to engage. There are rooms for us to work together. And there is a room for us to bring in more stakeholders on board, because the only way we can beat this, the only way we can win here is for us to work together. At Journalists for Human Rights, we work primarily with journalists. And this is why these collaborations are important. we work with journalists, and we've also been supporting the fight to end FGM. And how do we do so? We've been working with Jeremiah Here's organization, which is the Global Campaign to End FGM. So we've been working with them, and we've been training journalists to report ethically on female genital mutilation issues, and also to pursue accountability stories. In fact, recently, we've just commissioned journalists, provided grants to journalists, small grants to journalists. The idea is to help to facilitate them to go to communities, to tell stories, to find survivors, to look for community elders, religious elders, and government, to ask the tough questions, but importantly, to also just tell the stories of the survivors, to tell the stories of perpetrators who continue to hide behind culture, who continue to hide behind religion, to commit a crime. It is a crime. We call it for what it is. It is a crime. So we are working with journalists, and we will continue to support journalists, and we will continue to host similar conversations, bringing all stakeholders together to tell the stories. We operate with a type of journalism, that we don't just tell the stories and move on, but we do more what we call solution-based journalism. And this is a journalism that actually journalists go beyond just telling the story, but actually looking for the different stakeholders and ask the questions that will lead to some positive resolutions. It's the same thing we're doing with the anti-FGM work that we've been doing. I'd like to thank you all once more. Thank all my colleagues who have been working behind the scenes to make sure this happened, and thank our panelists and our participants, everyone who has made this happen. Journalists for Human Rights runs the Voice for Women and Girls Fight project in Kenya with support from Global Affairs Canada. And I would like to thank you all for your time. And definitely we will upload these conversations on our YouTube page. So if you want to share it with people in your contact to follow these conversations, they can also have these conversations. But we will be back soon with a conversation to further the conversations that we've already had this morning. Asante sana, and I would like to wish you all a great day and a winning day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Mom.
Bye.
Mom, where do you get this?
Bye-bye.